solo pure in backup così per le... Yeah, but it's better if you stay.
I think so.
Yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very important conversation with Her Excellency, the Palestinian Foreign Minister, Dr. Varsen Aghabekian Shahin. Thank you so much. Paulo and I are delighted to be starting this conversation with you today. So let's start on the future of Gaza. 2 years after the outbreak of the war, a ceasefire is now in place. And of course, there is much respite that comes with this, much relief, but there's a long way to go. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role the Palestinian Authority is envisioning to play in the future government mechanisms in Gaza, and how does it plan to work with both the United States and international partners?
Thank you very much, and good morning, all. Thank you for showing up. Today in Gaza, there is some sort of relief because the war has stopped. We hope that it has stopped and that this ceasefire is sustainable. We need to worry about the rebuilding of Gaza, given the monumental task that we have ahead of us, the amount of destruction that has been inflicted upon Gaza, the trauma with which the people are living right now and with which they will continue to live for some time in the future. And the Palestinian Authority has been thinking about this for some time now. We have developed an agenda on relief and reconstruction, and we hope that we can start implementing as soon as possible. Some of the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian government staff are already working in Gaza. They have been even before the war, during the war, and now it would be difficult, challenging, but it would be manageable to mobilize everybody to work under the different ministries, as they are already doing. This agenda has been endorsed by the Arab, the Islamic world, as well as the world at large, because basically it's the only plan at the table. There is no other plan that we know of. And it will be taken to the conference that will be held in Cairo in 2 to 3 weeks. It is the donors conference to support this plan. And this plan is estimated to cost about $67 billion. And that's probably maybe plus or minus. It's probably plus because the devastation is so enormous, and people will only know the extent of this devastation once they start assessing on the ground. So the plan is ready. The programs are ready. The themes are ready. The projects are ready. What is needed now is sustainable ceasefire, security measures on the ground so that the Palestinian Authority is enabled to implement the plan. Now, on the working with the United States, today we have no direct contact in the sense of normal relations with the United States. We envisage that this relationship will resume in the near future, and we will do whatever it takes to act as a state that deserves to be looked upon as a state on par as others of the world. And if the United States wants to be a key player, and it is a key player in the region and the world, it needs to start engaging more with the Palestinians, the Palestinian government, so that we can together air out the details of a future peace plan that entails the entirety of the occupied territory.
Minister, let's move to the future of the Palestinian Authority. The last 2 years have been quite challenging for everyone in the region. But now, as you said, there are plans, there are people involved, but Donald Trump's plan says that the Palestinian Authority need to complete reform to take control. And yesterday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel addressed the issue of the Palestinian Authority reform and said, today they say they are willing to reform, but they are not really making reform, and only implementation would lead to trust. Everything is very vague. Which reform, when? We know which reform are important, of course. Not election right now, it's impossible, but more transparency politically and economically is clearly needed. What's going on the reform issue? Is the Palestinian Authority really ready to show the willingness to reform and be ready to take some control if Trump plans is really meaning that?
Reform is a Palestinian demand. It's not, I mean, Israel wants us to reform, and I don't know what reform they want, because we never know what reform is defined as by the Israeli eyes, except in its broader terms, reforming, just like with the rest of the world, the curriculum, elections, doing better here and there. But we don't have a mark that says that we have achieved the reform that they want us to achieve. However, as Palestinians today, we know we have to develop ourselves. We have learned from our mistakes of the past. We are a state in the making, and as such, we need to develop this state so that, as I said, it would be par on with other states. Now, the most important reform that everybody talks about is the curriculum and the pay for the martyrs. Now, if we look at the curriculum, the question that needs to be asked today is, even if, and we are reforming the curriculum, because we want a curriculum that presents Palestine with its history and a forward-looking curriculum. And that's good for our children. The question that needs to be asked, if we develop that curriculum to the best standards of the world, and children that are taught that curriculum continue to live the dire situation of occupation, will that give them a sense of a narrative of peace? No. What will bring a narrative of peace and internalize it is what we experience on a daily basis. If a child learns something in the curriculum and on a daily basis sees a checkpoint, sees humiliation, sees his trees being uprooted, the farms being burnt, the fathers killed, the curriculum will not change. So what needs to change today is working towards ending occupation so that children feel that they will live and prosper in a safe and secure environment. On the payment of martyrs, we have changed the system as a whole. Now we have what is called a unified system of social welfare based on need. And this is open for audit. It has been implemented for quite some months. And we've asked that we have international monitors come and monitor the system and see if there are still flaws. So we are working and we have done our homework. Today, the ball is in the court of the Israelis. Yes, we reform, but the Israelis have a lot of things to worry about. And reform needs to take place on that side as well.
Thank you.
Madam Minister, I want to turn to the West Bank, which has not been covered as extensively. But of course, we've seen violent settler violence, expansion of settlement activity, and security concerns. How does the Palestinian Authority plan to address some of these issues? There are also governance issues involved.
Addressing the West Bank is not just the responsibility of the Palestinian government. It's the responsibility of the world. Because the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem are one unit as an occupied territory. Now we might have an ease up on the Gaza-Israel front, and things might be unleashed on the West Bank front. And the situation is very threatening, and we feel it because every day we have all sorts of violations. As you said, we have unleashed settlers that are armed, and they terrorize our lives on a daily basis. And we see more entrenchment of the occupation, emboldening of that occupation through taking more land, through presenting what is called the E1 project that will sever the north and south of the West Bank and will enlarge what is called the Greater Jerusalem. So we see that violations are intensified, and that's why we say, whenever we want to look at peace or moving on that track, we need to look at the occupied territory as one territory.
And that gets me to, as you mentioned, the responsibility of the world when it comes to the World Bank. If we can zoom into relations with the Arab world, key Arab countries, primarily neighboring countries, Jordan, Egypt, but also regional powers in the GCC, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. What role can they play, and how is the relationship with the PA?
The Arab world is the backbone of the Palestinians, and we need to continue strengthening the relationship with the Arab world. Today, we believe that this relationship is stronger than ever, and we've seen the response of the Arab world when there was talk about the Riviera in Gaza, when there was talk about the displacement of Palestinians. They all individually and collectively said no and moved as a front together. And we've seen that collective work after the Israeli attack on Qatar, and the whole Arab and Islamic world stood together and said, you know, an attack on one is an attack on all. So we see that kind of collective work and support towards ending the occupation and moving forward. The Arab world has been instrumental in the last 2 years in terms of humanitarian assistance, in terms of standing in support of Palestinians in international forums, in terms of calling for a ceasefire, you name it. And we need to build on that. Today, they are adamant to move forward in the day after in Gaza, and we expect a lot of support in terms of the funding that would be garnered towards the reconstruction of Gaza.
And if I may just add one element, what about support in strengthening the PA, addressing some of the challenges from within, particularly when it comes to governance?
Yes, this is important. We need to talk about governance and talk about unification and presenting Palestine as one, not only geographic entity, but as one people. And there are several countries that have been mediating amongst the Palestinians, and they will continue to do so. And we believe that we will have movement on that track soon.
Minister, when we were talking about the Arab country and their support, there is clearly a tricky issue on this, which is disarmament. Disarming Hamas, because the agreement mentioned that Hamas will disarm itself, meaning delivery arms to someone. We don't know whom, but they will. Then it's clear that Hamas is not anxious to disarm. And Trump said, if Hamas does not disarm, we will disarm it. Who will disarm Hamas? Not American soldiers, because Trump also said he will not send American soldiers. A soldier will be in the stabilization force, will come from Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Emirates, and so on. Can we imagine that soldiers from Egypt, for example, go and disarm Hamas with clashes and being seen as instrument of Israel in terminating the job? So how do you comment on this?
No, I think disarming Hamas should be reached through an agreement. Hamas has said that it will not have anything to do with the governance in the Gaza Strip the day after, and it said it is ready to disarm. But disarming needs conducive conditions. And probably what Hamas is thinking, that if I disarm and the attacks resume from the Israeli side, that would put them in a very precarious position. So there must be talks around a table, not through field confrontation, on what it takes to reach the stage of disarming Hamas. Because the intent is there. They said, we will disarm. And we will give the arms away to either the Palestinian Authority or an Arab country. So the intent is there. What we need is to find ways that does not lead us to confrontation in the field.
But do you think this is, in this step-by-step plan, do you think the issue of disarmament is one of the trickiest, or do you see any other riskier step in the process?
I think most steps are risky because the situation is so uncertain. And from learning from past experience, we know that ceasefires have been broken in the past. What we want is not going back to the aggressive situation we were under before. So all stakeholders should do whatever it takes to ensure that the ceasefire is sustained and the steps that will be taken are elaborated on, clearly delineated with a time frame.
Let's spend a few seconds on the role of the US and the role of Donald Trump. He has been clearly instrumental in reaching this first step and is clearly supporting Israel and Netanyahu strongly. But what strategy is the Palestinian Authority trying to have some kind of direct dialogue? You mentioned first that you don't have a direct dialogue, but if he's the big player, you need to have one. What are you doing to get there?
Yes, the US and President Donald Trump are key players, and as such, we need to make our voice heard. We need to work with countries that have influence on the United States or countries that can help us have our voice reaching President Trump and the people around him. That is important because we've seen that he can make things move. I mean, we would have liked to see the ceasefire take place much earlier to save lives, but better late than never. And as such, we need to continue working so that we are part of the stakeholders' entity and have a say, because in the final analysis, we are the main stakeholder. And plans that are put at the table deal with us, and we need to have a voice in those plans, and we understand the terrain, and we understand the needs of our people. And the Palestinian government, the PLO, is the legitimate authority today, until such a time when elections are held, and then the people will decide on who the leadership would be. But today, it is the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, and as such, anyone that is talking about the future of the area should include the PLO and the Palestinian government.
Trump was crucial, Europe was not. And we may be not crucial even in our usual job. Usually we don't create problem, we don't solve problem, but we pay for reconstruction. That's this time, apparently at least, as you mentioned, reconstruction after the Riviera Boutade will be paid at least partially by other Arab states. So we are completely sidelined, which is not nice for a region which is strongly related and with politically and economically with this region. What would you expect Europe to do for you in the next few years and months, practically?
We would have liked Europe to do a lot more, but we are also appreciative of the steps taken by Europe in the last few months and the last 2 years, for example, and even before. The humanitarian assistance and the development assistance was always there by Europe. But the issue in Palestine, we all know, is not the humanitarian assistance, because that assistance is a result of the failure on the political track. If the political track is solved, then the humanitarian assistance will be diminished. The recognitions by European states in the last few months we believe, have also influenced President Trump in his move towards the Gaza ceasefire plan. We would like Europe to continue imposing measures on the ground that will bring us closer to the materializing of the state of Palestine. Such as many of them have endorsed the New York Declaration, and we know that around 2/3 of the world has endorsed the New York Declaration. That declaration delineated 42 items in which they said clearly what needs to be done to take us from where we are today under occupation to materialize a state on the ground. And they have included several issues under security, the narrative of peace, the empowering of the Palestinian Authority, the legal aspects of the two states, et cetera, et cetera. And that has been worked on by 18 countries under 8 different themes. Under each one of those themes, there are specific measures that countries should think about and commit to so that they collectively move us towards materialization. Let's take an example, the settlers and the settlements. Settlements are illegal. All countries that have endorsed the New York Declaration say and believe that settlements are illegal because they are in occupied territory. And the Geneva Convention says you cannot move or change the geography or demography of occupied land. We need to start thinking of not trading with settlements. For those who are still trading with settlements, no trading with settlements because they are illegal entities emboldening occupation. On settlers, if you have settlers with dual citizenship, for example, Italians and Israelis, and they live in illegal settlements, and they terrorize Palestinian lives on a daily basis, you need to question these people. Settlers who violate Palestinian rights and go to retreats in Europe, they need to be questioned. If we move to other areas, using the airspace, using the water, there are so many issues that countries can take. And truly, if these measures are not taken, Israel will not be deterred. Israel will only be deterred if it feels that there is a price it has to pay for its continued ongoing occupation. And that's why we want all states, all countries to work by and commit to the New York Declaration and the measures to be taken.
We have an audience made of many young people, and which have been, like everyone else, very emotionally involved in what happened 2 years ago and what happened after 2 years ago. And you have been even more because you are part of this crisis. What's the message of hope you would deliver to them, and what's the message of worry that you would share with them? So the reason for your being optimistic and the reason or concern for your being a little bit worried on what may happen in the next couple of years.
I am cautiously optimistic. I have to build that optimism. We all have to. And we have to build that hope, because hope is what inspires us to move forward. If we go into desperation, then that wouldn't benefit any of us, because it won't be a drive and a propeller for moving forward. We have lived occupation for a long time. Violence breeds more violence. The only way out of this is to respect the dignity and the rights of the Palestinian people, to live in peace and security with its neighbor Israel. We have made our greatest concessions. We've recognized the state of Israel on 78% of historic Palestine. What we are asking today is our sovereignty on the 22%. Once we get recognition on the 22%, we can sit around the table and talk about anything. The future of the region entails 2 states, and nothing but the 2 states. Israel will not enjoy any security if the neighbors, us, are in pain. And we shouldn't, in this day and age, continue to have an occupied people that suffer on a daily basis, whose children do not see anything but wars, destruction, and the smell of death everywhere. We need to get out of this cycle, and that cycle can be stopped only if we are seen as human beings who deserve to live, and we are on par with others. There is no supremacy of one over the other. We are all equal, and where international law applies to all. International law was made so that we don't see the atrocities that we've seen in Gaza in the last 2 years. If that is broken, then that law order and international law will go into shambles. And if Israel continues with its occupation, then any other country can. And why not? If power is what drives this world, then any powerful country can do whatever Israel is doing.
I ask you to share the reason of worry, but please don't do it today. Come next year, but leave us with the reason of hope,
Yes.
which is the best way to end this conversation. I hand over to the chair.
Speaking of the hope, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about the role of civil society organizations. I was always amazed that in the midst of this brutal war, with all the pain and suffering, Palestinians and Israelis were still working together. They are a minority, but the role of civil society is very important, especially when you want to work on trust and coexistence. So how can the PA help support some of these efforts? Is there engagement with civil society?
Yes, we have a very vibrant civil society in many sectors, and that civil society was extremely helpful. It was holding the occupied territories before the institution of the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian government. Today we work together in various sectors. We have people in health, in education, in social welfare, you name it. And together we will help our society to heal. Because only when we heal, then we can approach the other side. Healing is a process that will take some time. I believe people-to-people projects involving civil society can take place. It's too early to say they can take place today because the healing process will take some time. But eventually, if we have a path towards peace and a light at the end of the tunnel that tells our people and the people of the region that peace is possible and justice can prevail, because an imposed peace without justice is not a sustainable peace. But I truly believe that that will happen one day.
Madam Foreign Minister, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you to Paulo. Thank you to all of you for joining us.
Thank you.